Hey, what is up guys, Murderman4 here, and today I'm going to be continuing on from my first post-series 11 thoughts. This is going to be my second afterthoughts video. This one's going to focus a bit more on the actual plot details of the series and more plot-related things as opposed to the behind-the-scenes changes going on. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So, the actual story elements of Series 11. There are a couple of kind of big changes that went on in the story of Series 11 that have been present in every other series, but has not been present here. So, first off, no returning monsters. Now, we did get a Dalek in Resolution, but that is it's not part of the series proper, and it hasn't even been released with Series 11. So when referring to Series 11, I'm probably just going to be referring to the one we fell to Earth through the Battle of Ranskorev Kalos. Wow, those are long bookending titles. But yeah, we did get a returning monster in Resolution, so I will talk about that a bit. But it was really refreshing, I thought, to not have any returning monsters this season. I was initially quite disappointed because I love seeing reimagining of classic foes. I still do. I do hope, now that we have already had a classic villain back with the Dalek, that we get more classic villains in Series 12. I don't want too many of them, one, maybe two maximum. I'm glad that we got a rest from the Cybermen. I'm glad that we got a rest from the Daleks, although I wish the Dalek rest was longer, as much as I really liked Resolution's portrayal of it. I think it's really good, though, that we went a gap without any classic monsters, because, I don't know, it's just good to have a break. It feels really fresh and exciting and new, and to have new villains and monsters every single week, I think is a great thing. And I know a lot of people were disappointed with a lot of the villains and monsters. I wasn't really. I thought they were pretty good. I didn't think they were particularly great necessarily, but I think that it worked really well, and you know what? If it's just a season break, I have no problem with it. So long as it's not a permanent change, which of course it wasn't, obviously, with the Dalek returning in Resolution. But one of the big things I liked about that was that it kind of shows that it doesn't need the past to hold it up. It can stand up on its own, although I know a lot of people don't seem to agree with that. That's what I think, and yeah, I think it was good that it took a break. The other big major change overall in the season is that it didn't really have a proper series arc like every other season of the new series has. Again, this is something I have no issue with. I do think, because here's the thing, the first and last episodes are connected, and the second episode also makes a mention of it, as if it's setting up a series arc. My problem with that is, it feels really awkward to have that kind of mention in the second episode and then not touch it again until the last episode. If you're going to do that, you may as well just go all the way and have a series arc. But outside of that, I have no problem with them not doing a series arc. I know a lot of people are upset with it. I don't understand why, especially because most series arcs don't play that much into the individual episodes anyways. It's basically just like a blink and you'll miss it mention or a scene, and it doesn't affect the individual episodes anyway. So I don't really see the problem people have with it. So yeah, I don't mind the story arc being gone, and I'd rather have no story arc than a story arc forced on top where it clearly doesn't need to be there, like the hybrid arc for Series 9, for example. The other thing I was worried about is that without an arc, the finale might not really be much of an event, but I think it kind of worked in that it was connected to the first episode. It acted as like a bookend for the series, so in that regard, I think that worry was unfounded. Another thing that was disappointing was this series did not have any multi-part stories. I love multi-part stories. I think that I love the cliffhangers. I love that it expands the story that you can tell. And I was really disappointed in that stretch between mid-Series 6 and the end of Series 8 where we had only single-parters. And I'm disappointed again that we only got single-parters in Series 11. I really hope we have multi-part stories again in Series 12. Now, on that note, unlike some people, I don't think any of these episodes necessarily needed to be a two-parter, except for maybe the finale. And while I miss two-parters, I don't think it was bad to only have single episodes in Series 11. I think it worked fine. I just miss having the multi-part stories. Although, admittedly, with less episodes, it probably doesn't work as well because it takes up more of your season. But I think they should also not have less episodes. Another little change, too, is that the series has a new format. We only get 10 episodes. They are 50 minutes now instead of 45 minutes. But it's really disappointing to have a shorter series again, and I really, honestly, didn't feel like the extra 5 minutes did much for anything. I would much rather continue having 12 45-minute episodes than 10 50. So that's kind of disappointing, because I just don't feel like that was enough time to justify losing 2 episodes. I could understand losing episodes if they were like 60 minutes each. That would totally make sense, but 50 minutes just doesn't cut it for me. So that is one aspect of that is one change to this series that I don't really think worked. Of course, even though there's no story arc, there is a bit of a character arc going on. Unfortunately, Yaz doesn't really have much of one. As many people have joked about online, she doesn't have much of a character or place in the series at all. She's often just kind of there, and I unfortunately can't disagree with that. I like her, but that's only because Mandeep Gill is like, she's a likable actress and good as the character. The character itself doesn't really have much purpose, and 3 companions is something that can work well. It's done really well in the first season of the show back in 1963, but unfortunately here, it's just not played out too well. It doesn't justify it, which is something that's disappointed me. I was optimistic about it going in, but I'm disappointed in that regard, because you don't need these 3 companions. You only need 2 of them. You could cut out Yaz and nothing would really be different. Ryan and Graham, at least, they have a story arc together. You have their growing relationship, and when Ryan calls Graham granddad and It Takes You Away and gives him the fist bump in the Battle of Ranscroft Colossus, that's a good emotional payoff. It works really well. So those 2 characters are great to have. Yaz just doesn't do much of anything to justify her being there. And I feel like Kerblam is the only episode this season that actually justified having 3 companions instead of just 2 or 1. So that's a disappointment, I think. I also wish that the Doctor had a little bit more depth this season. I know that it's, trying to be a bit more simpler and more friendly to new viewers, but I think there could have been more done with her. Like Yaz, actually, she's likable, but overall not too remarkable. So that's a shame, because I am sure there's more that can be done with her Doctor, and I hope more gets explored in Series 12. Something I'm actually a big fan of, though, is a greater focus on historical episodes and education, like the original seasons of the show did. I love that. I know a lot of people have a problem with that, and something I don't understand is people saying that, oh, these episodes didn't have enough sci-fi in them to be Doctor Who. But I'm like, that isn't what Doctor Who is all about. Doctor Who is a show that can be pretty well anything, and historicals are one of the things that has been with the show since the beginning. The pure historicals of the 60s, which I'm disappointed we didn't get, those have no sci-fi elements except for the Doctor, his companions, and the TARDIS being there. That's it. And I honestly, some of those historicals are some of the best Doctor Who stories of the 60s, if not the whole show. The Aztecs and the Romans, for example, those are amazing stories. And I love, learning from the show, learning new things. I think it's great. So I love that that element has been reintroduced into the show, and I love the greater focus on the historicals, because I love historical episodes. I think they're fascinating to learn about history, and so I'm really glad that Chibnall has gone down that road and kind of returned to that. Of course, some other things that got changed are more cosmetic things. They don't really hold a bearing on the plot, but they are changes like in-universe. Sonic Screwdriver, the TARDIS, the Doctor's outfit, things like that. So, my opinion on these hasn't really changed too much, aside from I've gotten used to them. When I initially saw the 13th Doctor's outfit, I was astounded. I'm like, that looks horrendous. I'm still not a huge fan of it. I've gotten used to it. It started to seem a bit more doctory to me, but I'm still not. I don't like the hood. I've never liked hoods on the Doctor. It's too casual. And I'm also not a huge fan of the pants, although because I didn't like how they were hiked up and you could see your ankles. But admittedly, it's not very noticeable in the show, so that's fine. Her outfit's fine. I don't love it, but I've gotten used to it, and I have started to think that it is a doctory outfit. Likewise, we also have the sonic screwdriver, which I thought was pretty ugly when I first saw it. I still don't think it's very great, honestly. I like it for the plot reason that it was actually constructed by the Doctor herself in that warehouse in Sheffield, but beyond that, I just don't really like the look of it. I just think it looks ugly, and it's too organic. I think that the sonic screwdriver, and the TARDIS too, they should be more technological. So that's a disappointment to me. And onto the TARDIS, I love the exterior. Possibly my favorite exterior ever. I love how it's like a modernized version of the classic TARDIS exterior. The interior, on the other hand, when I first saw it, I thought it was ugly, like the sonic screwdriver. When I first saw it on screen, I was like, okay, I'll wait, maybe on screen it'll look better. I still thought it looked ugly. And honestly, while I've gotten used to it, I still think it looks a little bit ugly. And the sonic screwdriver and the TARDIS interior, they're both my least favorite of those respective things. The TARDIS interior, I feel the same way as I did when I first saw it, mostly. I think it's too dark. I hate the big, huge crystal pillars. I think that the console looks a little bit too simple. Although I do like the new readouts and stuff like that. I think they're cool. And I think the wall designs are pretty neat as well. But yeah, I do also love how the time rotor isn't connected to the ceiling anymore and it goes up and down like it did in the classic series. But I'm just not a fan of the crystals. I'm not a fan of the lighting. I'm just not a fan of this TARDIS interior, which is too bad. And I think that's probably all of the plot-related elements that I'm gonna go into. So, for the most part, I think that Series 11 turned out quite well, especially with all the changes that it had to deal with. Overall, I would say that the series was thoroughly enjoyable, but unremarkable. It's not incredible. It's the first season to not have a single 9 out of 10 episode from me. However, I don't think it's terrible, far from terrible. I think the people who think it's like the worst thing that's ever happened to Doctor Who are being absolutely ridiculous. I think it's at absolute worst mediocre. It's one of only 4 series, along with Series 1, 4, and 5, that I haven't given a single episode below a 5. So, I don't really think it's bad. But I don't think it's amazing either. And there's definitely things that can be improved upon. But I think the groundwork is all there. I really like Chibnall's direction for the show, his idea for it. I think that it's a great direction to go in, and it's got a ton of potential. And I think that while executed well, it's got a ways to go until it can be executed great. One of the most ironic things I think about this series is that going into it, I was just not as hyped as others. I was not as excited for Jodie Whittaker in the role, or some of the design choices, for example. Whenever I'd make negative, even remotely negative comments on Reddit, it'd get downvoted, and I felt like I was in a minority. I felt like I can't believe that people aren't able to speak their minds, how you have to like it or you're some evil person. And it's ironic because I went into the Series 11 skeptical and not the most positive about it, and I felt like I was in the minority. I come out of it enjoying it and thinking it's a good series and far, far from bad. I feel like I'm in the minority because everyone seems to hate it, and I just can't understand that. And now I feel like my role has switched from feeling like I can't speak my mind about criticisms I have for it to there are so many criticisms going on about it, and there's so much hatred toward it that I can't say anything positive without people attacking me or something for it. It's ridiculous. I have become one of the people that I was annoyed with before. I've become the kind of person that defends the series, that doesn't like to see it criticized like that, because to me it seems like unfair criticism. There are certainly fair things to criticize about it, but I just find it really funny that I used to feel like I was being attacked for not being positive towards the series, and now I end up defending the series all the time. It's just really interesting. But yeah, you know what? I was not disappointed by the series. It didn't amaze me, but I wasn't disappointed. It wasn't great, but it was far, far from bad. It was thoroughly enjoyable, and you know what? I think Chibnall has done a great job as showrunner. Maybe not as much as writer, but as showrunner, I think he's doing a really good job. I hope he sticks around for a while. I like the direction he's taking it. I like the decisions that he's made, and I'm excited to see what's next. After watching Resolution, while I was watching Resolution, I was actually genuinely sad that I wasn't going to see any new episodes of the TARDIS team for another year. So in that regard, Chibnall, I think, has succeeded. There's a ways to go until he can be great, but I think Series 11 is good. And that's what I have to say on it. I think that it's turned out really well. The changes have worked really well, and who knows, maybe some of these thoughts will change in a few more months when I rewatch the whole series, but as of now, after having a couple of months to reflect on it, after seeing the thing as a whole, I think it turned out good. And yeah, that's what I have to say on it. Those are my Series 11 afterthoughts. I'm sure most of you will have differing opinions on that. But please put your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. But yeah, this has been Murgaman4, over and out. I'll see you guys later.